I did a story yesterday. It might have been yesterday, maybe a day or so prior. But it made the point that ICE had lost nearly 500 kids. Now, this was something that was prominent in the debate last night that they kept bringing up, saying, hey, what about the 500 kids, or more than 500 actually, that are missing parents? You don't know where the parents are, and many of these parents have probably been deported. What are you doing with these kids? And the conditions that these kids are living in are not necessarily the greatest. You've seen the cages and the lack of hygiene in those cages that, the Trump camps. A secondary catch with this has to do with a story that's just coming out in The Guardian that is utterly despicable and appalling. It has to do with the United States ramping up deportations in lieu of the elections that are coming up. The idea being there's going to be a change of management, potentially, and ICE wouldn't necessarily be given the rope to run rampant in the way that it's run rampant. And they are trying to, let's say, clean house and get rid of people that may be able to tell on some of the abuses that was taking place under the Trump administration, under ICE. Well, one of these abuses that are coming to light, if losing kids wasn't bad enough, has to do with beating, choking, injuring people to force those people to sign their own deportation papers. Meaning, Cameroonians or Congolese basically going back to the country that they're going back to, that country has issues of extrajudicial killings. Basically, they're going to be persecuted in the countries to which they're coming from, and they are trying to get asylum in the United States. Well, instead of being given the privilege for that asylum or given leeway for that asylum, you have a situation where the agents have been going, let's say, beyond the duty to try to eliminate these people, to get them eliminated from the country without their day in court, without even a fair hearing on whether or not they would get any level of leeway to stay in the country. I'm going to go through the story and I'm going to read some of the accounts. It's appalling, to put it mildly. It's utterly appalling. And I strongly suggest I don't think this takes place without some level of racist intent built into the way that the people are dealing with some of the people of this African descent. But either way, whatever it is, I'm making the point of saying this is not the way an immigration system is supposed to work. And yet, this is the way, even under the Obama administration, to varying degrees, was working. When Trump hits Joe Biden, who built the cages, Joe? Who built the cages? He's making the point that, look, your administration did have those cages and you were putting kids in those cages. So don't try to put this entirely as if it was on me. By the same token, let's be clear, Trump has let ICE run rampant and these big ticket busts that he's been getting. But even on that point, Obama greatly deports Trump, regardless of the rates. But again, you get this issue of incompetence. And in this very specific case, this is under Trump. And this is utterly disgusting behavior for a governmental service. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. These are asylum seekers. And the key point to this is we're seeking asylum because they're going to murder us back in our own home. That's the idea. Or I'm going to get persecuted in my own home. Or something is going to take place in my own home. I am petitioning your country for asylum. And in this case, we have now ICE. We have ICE. And ICE, at this point, has become this fascistic element in our country that goes and grabs American citizens, and for that matter, in this case, apparently, roughly, brutally, deports people through force. I'm going to read some of these stories. So, right here. A complaint filed by the FII and the Southern Poverty Law Center cites 8 cases of forcible signatures and fingerprint stipulated orders of removal. One of these involved an identified gentleman by BJ. 27th of September, ICE officers pepper sprayed my eyes and strangled me almost to the point of death. I kept telling him I can't breathe. I almost died. As a result of the physical violence, they were forcibly obtained my fingerprint on the document, BJ said. Another detainee, DF. I refused to sign. He pressed my neck on the floor. I said, please, I can't breathe. I lost blood circulation. Then they took me inside with my hands behind my back where there were no cameras, DF said. According to his account, he was taken into a punitive wing of the Adams County Center, known as Zulu, and subjected to further assault. They put me on my knees where they were torturing me, and they said they were going to kill me. They took my arm and twisted it. They were putting their feet on my neck. While in Zulu, they did get my fingerprint on the deportation document and took my picture, he said. DF was one of the detainees on 13th of October flight to Dula. It is unclear what happened to him since. The flight to Dula is a flight where they sent, I think it was 60 Cameroonians and 20 Congolese. Right here. A plane carrying 60 Cameroonian and 28 Congolese asylum seekers was quietly flown out of Fort Worth Alliance Airport in Texas on the 13th of October to deliver them to their home countries. Now, this was a flight where all of these people were on, and they were deposited back to their countries without the capacity to seek asylum. And in this case, some of the people they were put on that flight were people who were forcibly made to sign. The gentleman who I just read, DF, was one of those people that was on that flight that was sent back to his home country with that fraudulent signature, not given the opportunity to seek asylum. Whether or not they are approved for asylum is secondary to the point of whether or not they should be allowed to seek it. And if we have immigration in this country, and if that's allowed, then they should be allowed. That's a legal process. That's not, this is not. That's not. A third detainee, CA, said he was forced to the ground, set on handcuffed and pepper sprayed. I was crying. I can't breathe because they were forcefully on top of me, pressing their body weight on top of me. My eyes were so hot, I was dragged across the ground, he said. The officers told me to open my eyes. I couldn't. My legs and hands were handcuffed. They forcibly opened my palm. Some of my fingers were broken. They forced my fingerprint onto the paper. CA was taken off on an October 13th flight, but still was taken off the 13th flight, but still faces deportation, meaning he's still here. Here's another one. Well, those 3 are good. It's a good article. And so it's like you kind of try to determine how much you want to give, how much you don't want to give because of the length of the videos and whatnot. But if we see the behavior of ICE, meaning if we see some of the raids, taking people away, putting them in these disgusting cages, and kids not getting picked up from their schools because their parents, who were hardworking, just got deported, or for the most part just got put into some cage without reprieve. If that's what you see, then what don't we see? And I think that's the stuff. That's the creature behind the cupboard type stuff. This is appalling, to put it mildly. It's appalling. Whatever administration comes in, whether or not ICE is going to be dealt with, or how they're going to be dealt with, or even if they're going to be investigated, who knows? Joe Biden may come in, keep the mechanics of it in place without necessarily doing anything drastic to the organization. He is not getting rid of ICE. He's already said that. Whether or not he does anything, who knows? It's Joe Biden. He's probably going to go back to status quo. But clearly, this should be investigated. Clearly, that should be investigated. And will it be? Here's the thing. And Immigrants and the people who come to this country, especially black African immigrants, are the least of us in regards to power. Meaning, if you're thinking of power in regards to power distribution, they are at the lowest end of that totem pole. They are, in this case, in captivity, in one case, meaning they're in the bowels of a country that at this point doesn't really care anything about them, doesn't even know that they're there in the bowels of that country, and they're subjected to the whims of ICE. That's our front to deal with these people or to deal with this group. I'm making the point that this is appalling. What they say, you can judge a society by how you treat the least of the people in your society, and this is the way we're treating the least of the people in our society. If our law is to give them asylum, or at the very least give them the attempt at asylum, then that should be done. If the judge kicks them out after that, then fair enough. It is not for the ICE agent to basically break somebody into submission, to be kicked out of the country, any more than it is for the cop to take maximum justice on somebody because it doesn't necessarily like the way that guy, something the guy said or escalating. I'm going to end it here. This just greatly bothers me, and there's nothing. Let's just see what gets done about it. I will be shocked if anything does. And yet, on the newspaper is basically saying a government organization was breaking people into getting those people to sign their own deportation papers. How does the world, or how does a country, let that ride without doing anything about it? I'll follow the story and see what happens, but I don't see it. Like, share, and subscribe. Oh, by the way, this could happen under a Biden administration also. Meaning, you shouldn't be shocked by this if this was under Obama or if this was under Biden. The organization operates as the organization operates. Trump might have given it a little bit more leeway, but that doesn't necessarily mean that stuff like this wasn't happening under Obama. Like, share, subscribe.